As she mentioned, my name is Charles Sammons. I'm a sales engineer with BizNet Software, and I'm going to take you through today and show you some examples of how you can use BizNet software products to achieve self-service business analytics and reporting from your Sage 100 system. So the first thing that we wanted to discuss is that hopefully what you're looking at right now is my screen, and you can see that we're in a basic Excel report here. What we found is that Excel is is far and away the #1 Office application in the world in terms of number of users. I mean, there's well over 1 billion users. And currently what industry experts have determined is that most people use Excel, but they're only using about 20% of the functionality of the product. And when users are surveyed, the #1 answer that's given, or the #1 reason that's given for that, is the fact that getting data into Excel is extremely difficult. And once you have it in there, being able to manipulate that data and get it into a format that you can then use to populate some of these more advanced features, again, is extremely difficult, and in some cases even time prohibitive. So that is what we want to talk about today. That is the problem that BizInsight addresses and actually solves. And so what that means to you is that your reporting experience is going to be very different. So when we talk about self-serve business analytics, let's look at some examples of what that means. So suppose that we are a report writer, or we are the consumer. We're the one that's requesting the report. Suppose one day the boss comes down the hallway and says, hey, I need some numbers. I need you to put some numbers together for me. I've got somebody coming in. I know it's short notice, but do what you can. I'm going to pull up a report like this, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, this is a report that I've sent to them in the past. It's formatted the way that I want. I have all of my fonts, my typefaces, everything is set up the way that I want. The problem is that the data is old, right? In the past, to import new data and basically recalculate the values in this report would simply be like starting over. But because this report was created with BizInsight, all I have to do is come up here to my year and my month, and I'm going to change those. And when I do, notice that my report updates. Now, the great thing about this is that whether I'm the analyst who's creating the report, or I'm the business user that's actually utilizing this report, either one of those could use this functionality. So, but from a self-service business standpoint, the thing that we want to understand is that right now the way that it's set up is an analyst or report writer creates the report. They send it out to the users. The users who get that report may have a question about some of the data, or they may want to see it formatted differently, or they may have a question about the report. Traditionally, right now, what's happening is they will send that request back to the analyst. They will go back into the queue, and then as the analyst can get to those tasks, they will get that report back. And so what self-service business analytics is trying to do in terms of reporting is get more of the control over that information into the hands of the actual report user, or the business user. So what that looks like is, if I were to request this report, or if this was a report that I had used in the past or wanted to use, and it was built on the BizInsight platform and it was sent to me, anytime I wanted to get an up-to-date version of this report, all I would have to do is open it up. I would come over here again. I would change the date. This report would refresh. Again, notice that when I did that, it went, my title updated. It even said 1 month income statement for for the month ended December 2016. I have my December 2016 numbers in front of me. The report's ready to go. If I wanted to, suppose I looked at this and I said, I'd really like to have a 3-month report instead of a 1-month report. Well, what I can do is I can come over here without having to go back to the analyst. I can simply open this report. I can select the month that I want to start with, and I'm going to change that to October, and then I'm going to highlight that column, and I'm going to drag it over 2 columns. And when I do that, notice that my title is updated, and now it says 3 months trending income statement for the quarter ended December 2016. I have my 3 months of numbers in front of me. This report is ready to go, and I was able to do that on my own without having to go back into that analyst queue. If I wanted a year, not a problem. Same thing. I'm going to go up and change that first month to January, and as you can already, you're probably already imagining, I'm going to grab that last column there, and I'm going to drag that all the way over. And when I do that, notice my title updates again. Now I have a 12-month trending income statement for the year ended 2016. I have 12 months of data in front of me. This report is ready for me to use. So I was able to go from that old 1-month report to a current month-ended report to a current quarter-ended report to a current year-ended report, all in a matter of seconds with just a few mouse clicks. And more importantly, I was able to do it on my own without having to go back to my report builder or to my analyst to go back into that queue and hopefully get that report sometime in the next few days. I was able to do that in a matter of seconds. Now, another question that I might have as I'm looking at this is I might say, this looks great, but I'm going to need last year's numbers. I need to, maybe I'm doing some year-over-year comparisons. I need some information that, for last year's numbers. And so, again, instead of having to go back to the analyst, I'm simply going to come up here, and I'm going to change this value. And when I do, my entire report is going to update, and I'm going to get last year's numbers. So I can have reports created for me that give me the ability to go as far back in my ERP system or as far back in Sage as I want to. Of course, at any given time from the analyst side, you can control that as well. If you have 10 years of data in your system, but you only want to give them access to 3 at a time, you can easily do that. The other thing, I might want to do something like a fiscal year. I might say, well, our fiscal year goes from September to August. I'd really like to have this report configured to match that. Again, all I have to do for other reporting applications, and even Excel, because of the way that they access data on the back end, it's difficult to do. But with BizInsight, all I have to do is come up here. I'm going to change that first month to September. When I do, notice that the crossing crossing over that year is seamless. It goes from September of 2015 to August of 2016, and it does it very easily. So I now have access to any 12-month period in my database. And for that matter, if I wanted to do an 18-month or a 24-month, I could do that as well. But the point is that I'm able to configure this report and make it look the way that I want. Now, once I have the report looking, reflecting the requirements that I have for this particular report, the next thing that I might do is start looking at the individual numbers. Now, again, this is where probably 75 to 80% of the questions that come back to analysts, we are finding, have to do with being able to see the data behind the data, right? So I've been able to manipulate this report, and I've been able to, move it around and expand it, and even, change the time periods if necessary. But now what I would like to do is I'm looking at these individual values. If I come across a number, say I look at this number and I think, okay, what's going on here? I need a little more detail. Rather than going back to the analyst and saying, can you get me the detail for my revenue hardware account for March of 2016? I can come over here and right-click on that number and go down to my drill-down menu and select table, and it's going to bring me up a list of the line item detail from the database for that particular value. So I can answer those questions myself. I don't have to wait for the analyst to bring that information to me. And if I want to get a little more detailed, maybe I want them to send me that information so that I can then do it, put it into a pivot table, for instance. A lot of people like pivot tables. We take advantage of those as well. I'm going to right-click on that and go down to my drill-down menu. Instead of selecting table, I'm going to select pivot table. And when I do, notice that it brings up that value in pivot table format. I can click on it. I get my pivot table field editor, and now I can do all the things that users like to do with pivot tables. So I can move fields around. I can choose maybe I want to make GL account number my row header, and I'm going to use segment 2 as my column header. And now I can configure that pivot table to look the way that I want, with the added bonus that if I want to see any of the line item detail, I can simply double-click any of those numbers, and I can still get that detail from the database. So I can go from my report directly to a table, or I can go from my report to a pivot table to a list. But either way, I have the ability to move around very quickly and very easily in and out of this data. So in terms of self-serve business analytics, I have a lot of information at my fingertips. Now suppose I am a division manager, and what I don't want is I don't want to get the numbers for the entire company, right? I just want enough information to answer the questions that I have about my particular division. Well, here's that same report. Excuse me. Here's that same report. But now what I've done, or what they've done, is they've added another parameter for me so that I can still update this by date, but now I can go in and I can select the individual department or division that I want the information for. If I'm the analyst and I'm trying to send this out and I don't want them to get anything but their division, I can create this on my side and then send that out. And with, I can actually automate that using Biz Broadcast, which we'll look at here in just a few minutes. But I can actually filter this report so that I'm only getting the information that I need. And even when I drill down, notice that my detail is filtered with the same parameters as my report. So I can have this report customized top to bottom so that I'm only getting the data that I want. The other thing too, from an analyst perspective, or from a report builder's perspective, notice here that for each individual division, I can select any year, and it's going to update. And likewise, for each year, I can select any division. So what that means to me is that if I have, in this case, I have 3 years worth of data, and I have 5 different values for my division parameter, that's 15 versions of this report that I can create from this single worksheet. In the past, what I would have to do is I would create a workbook that had all 15 versions of that report in it. So I'd have 15 different tabs, each reflecting a different combination of parameters. And I would have to maintain that. Those tabs, I would have to make sure that they were up to date. And basically, I would have to go and rebuild that workbook every time I wanted to send it out. But with BizInsight, all I have to do is create the report once, and then I can go and tell it which parameters I want it to filter by, and then anytime I need a version of that report, I simply go in, I select the combination of parameters that I want, and the report is updated for me automatically. The other thing too that I wanted to point out is, if you'll notice that for my division parameter, I have 4 different individualized parameters or division values, and then I have one that says all. So I can do an individualized version of this report, or I can do a consolidated report, and I can do that with any of the entities in my database. So where where Sage 100 has multiple companies, I can create consolidated reports that include information from multiple companies on the same worksheet, and I can consolidate those, and I can have everything synchronized so that it all updates according to the parameters that I select. The The next thing that that I want to show is when we talk about self-serve business analytics, what it ultimately means is that we want to be able to get the information that we need to make business decisions, and we want to be able to do it quickly, and we want to have that information right there on hand so that we can get to it anytime we need it. We want to be able to refresh it. We want to be able to and update it. We want to be able to modify it if necessary. We want to be able to filter it. We want to be able to do all of these things to give us multiple perspectives on that information so that we can then get the answers that we need to make informed and up-to-date decisions, right? We want those decisions to be, of course, timely and accurate. So the better our data, the better our chances of achieving that. Here is a report that shows how you can incorporate Excel logic in conjunction with BizInsight formulas to really create some dynamic and robust reports. Notice that this is a rolling 12-month statement. Notice my current period shows October of 2015. I'm going to come up here, I'm going to change my date values, and I'm going to update that. And so now my current period has updated, but so has my the previous 11 months. They've updated as well. So I have a true rolling 12-month report. Whatever I change this to, the previous 11 months are going to update. And I can actually, again, I have a rolling 12-month report. In this case, it's 12 months, but as I mentioned before, I could make it an 18-month or whatever whatever time period I wanted to use. With other reporting packages, something like that is very difficult because of the way that, again, the way that they interact with the data on the back end. But with BizInsight functions inside of Excel, it's seamless and it's very easy to do, which makes that that on-demand data request for the self-serve business functionality very easy to use, very seamless, and again very timely. The other thing too is you notice that it's a very high-level view of this report. I have just for my revenue, cost of sales, and expenses sections, I have just my total revenue showing, or my totals showing. But suppose I wanted to be able to see the individual values that make up those numbers. There are a couple of ways that I can do that. The quickest way, and probably the easiest way, is to use roll-ups or groupings so that I can create roll-ups. And now I have the ability to expand any one of these sections, see the individual account balances that make up these numbers, and I can close them up and I can get those out of the way so that I still have my report structure intact. I can even, because of the fact that these are BizInsight functions, I can even drill down into any of these and see that that individual account detail that we were talking about. So I can go from a very high-level view of this report to a transaction-level view in just a matter of seconds. And this report will automatically adjust. If you notice, the entire report will adjust. So in any changes that I make, it updates for me on the fly, and I'm able to get access to that information exactly the way that I want to see it. Which brings me to the next point, and that is that as I'm changing these numbers, you've probably noticed that at the bottom of the screen or at the bottom of the report, there's a chart that updates. The reason that is because the BizInsight functions integrate so well into Excel that to Excel, these are not just simply BizNet data objects. It actually sees them and treats them as though they were native formulas, or even better, just data, information that was typed into a cell. And what that means is I can attach an Excel element to those, to the cells where we have our BizInsight functions, and it's going to act as though it's not going to act any differently than it would if we were using an Excel formula. And so what that means is when I change the values that update my functions, the element, in this case a chart, that's attached to them is going to update as well. So now not only have I created a dynamic table with this BizInsight functions, I've created a dynamic chart. So now, if I'm creating a report for somebody who is not a numbers person, or if I myself am not a numbers person, but I do have responsibilities that require me to monitor key performance indicators in my business, I don't have to get a report that requires me to decipher what the numbers mean, or I don't have to build an additional report for somebody just to accommodate that that graphic functionality. I simply add an Excel chart to my report, and it's very quick, it's very easy to do, and now I've just opened this report up to a whole new realm of users. Here's another example of using that Excel functionality in conjunction with BizInsight formulas. Here is an actual versus budget report. What I want to do is I want to see all of my numbers in the same place. I don't want to have to, I don't want to have to be switching back and forth between worksheets. I don't want to have to go in and fill the information in myself. I want everything in a very easy and accessible format that I can move around in and I can use very quickly. So that's where this particular report comes in. So the way that we formatted this actual versus budget report is that we've added the budget numbers for the year, but then the request was, as the year progresses, I want to replace those budget numbers with actuals so that I can see exactly how I'm progressing towards my goal. So you notice that as the year moves on, as each month goes by, the budget numbers are replaced with actual numbers. And if you look here at my totals, my actual total is cumulative, so that against my budget number, I can actually get a percentage of goal that is that's cumulative as well. So as the year progresses, I can see just exactly where I am with respect to my goal, and I can see at what point I actually achieve that goal, and even I can even do a year-over-year comparison so that I could go and see, where was I at this point last year, and I can do comparisons and even use information to help me in my forecasting. Here's a copy of an income statement, and I include this because the other thing about self-service business analytics and reporting is being able to get to the information when you need it, and in a timely manner and in an accurate manner. In the past, this report is as basic as an income statement would be created with data that was imported from the ERP system. Most what industry experts have found is that most people that use Excel are using Excel with data that has been imported from another source or has been exported from another source into Excel. Once that data has been moved into Excel, it becomes static at that point. And what our users have told us is, in the past, is that basic reports like this, and you may be experiencing this yourself, is that basic reports like this are taking anywhere from 20 to 30 and sometimes even 40 hours every month to recreate. So what that means is that your data, when this report goes out, it's 20 to 30 and sometimes even 40 hours old. And so now, even though they're just getting the report, either one of two things is happening. Either they request the report, when they finally get it, the data is a half a week to a week old, or they're not getting their month-end numbers until well into the middle of the following month. Either way, it's not exactly conducive to helping make good business decisions. So now what we can do is we can create this report. We create it one time. Notice that this report has month-to-date as well as year-to-date numbers and prior and current year. So I've got month-to-date, year-to-date, as well as year-over-year for both. And to update that, as you've seen, I simply come up here, I change that parameter, and the entire report updates for me automatically. And with Biz Broadcast, I can even automate that so that it does that for me on the fly. I don't even have to open it, and I simply set it up to be automatically updated refreshed and distributed. And so what that means now is that we have eliminated the time that you're currently spending building reports, and soon what will happen is that when you'll find that once you have freed your time up from reports like these, you can now start to concentrate on other parts of your business. For instance, who owes us money? Here's a great example of self-service business analytics. I bring this, let's suppose I create a report. This is an aged and forecasted receivables report. What I've done here is notice there's a list of my customers as well as how much they owe. I've got it broken down to their past due invoices over the last 30, 60, 90, and 90 plus days, as well as what are they going to have upcoming due in the next 90 days. So I can do cash flow projections, and I can do aged past due receivables off of the same report. So notice that that what I've done is in addition to having the numbers broken out for me, I've also added another column here for trend, and I've used an Excel element called spark charting. And so each line has a trend, or it has a spark chart that shows me what their trend looks like in terms of their past dues over the last 60, 90, and 90 plus days. So what that means is I can create reports that are not just conveyors of data, right? I can create reports that are actually living documents that help me and give me the information that I need to make very quick decisions. For example, suppose the warehouse comes to me and says, hey, we just got a couple of orders in, one from Computer Repair and Sales and the other one from Blackwell. Both of them are asking for the same product, but we don't have enough to fill both. What should we do? Well, in the past, knowing that Computer Repair and Sales obviously does a lot of business with us, I would, off the top of my head, I might say, go ahead and fill that one first. It's one of our biggest customers, and then we would move on from there. But now what I can do is I can bring up this report. I can go and select my aging date, so I could put in today's date if I wanted to, and I'd put in the date. The report would refresh for me automatically. I would immediately come over here to my trend column, and I could see that Computer Repair and Sales, that their past due invoices are actually trending up, whereas Blackwell's trending down, which tells me that they're starting to pay their bills. So what I would do is I would tell the warehouse, go ahead and send out the Blackwell order. I'm going to call Computer Repair and Sales, talk to them about the back order, and then at that time, of course, I could talk to them about their past due invoices. So what I've done is I've just used this report as a point of information that allowed me to make a very quick decision that has a direct effect on my bottom line, right? I'm not putting capital out to a black hole that's not returning anything, right? I was able to get that information very quickly and use it to make a timely decision. Here is a customer analysis report. I can use the Excel functionality along with my BizInsight functions to create reports that direct my attention to exactly the information that I want from my report. I don't have to worry about hunting through the data, hunting through the numbers to try to figure out what it is I'm looking for. I can create reports that highlight for me what information I want to see. And in this case, I'm looking at who are my top customers in terms of amount invoiced, quantity shipped, gross margin. Notice that when I change the month, the conditional formatting updates for me automatically. And I've even added an additional chart here with a line, with a bar graph, right, line by line bar graph, so that I can even see who's my top customer for a month, right? Notice how quickly your eye is drawn to that top customer. So I can create reports that give me the information I need quickly and easily, and I don't have to spend a lot of time hunting for that information. So to bring it all together, here is a sample of a sales analysis report that includes the conditional formatting, the data chart, even has a bar chart at the bottom that shows me what my trend looks like. There's a lot of information that I can get from this report in a very easy to use, very concise workspace, and I can get what I need quickly and easily. So, for instance, suppose I'm a sales manager, right? I'm a sales director. The vice president comes up and says, "Hey, I got a few minutes. Do me a favor, pop into my office and bring me up to speed. How are we doing?" Well, in the past, hopefully I would have up-to-date numbers. Hopefully I would have all of the information together right there at my fingertips that I would need to answer those questions. But with BizInsight, I can actually create reports that absolutely make sure that I have everything that I need. I simply open the report. I can, as you've already seen, I can change just a few parameters. I can refresh that report, update it, and now look at all of the information that I can get from this one report. Who are my top 3 salespeople for a particular month? How much did we sell in that particular month? What does our trend look like over the last 12 months? What was our highest month? What was our lowest month? I can look over here and see I have a metric here that shows me that 65 to 70% of our sales overall are brought in by our top 3 salespeople. I can see who are my top 3 salespeople and how is a particular salesperson doing. For instance, I can see here that this salesman has been top 3 11 out of the last 12 months. This particular salesman, not so good. I can look at all of this information and I can get everything that we just talked about. It was information that I was able to get off of this report in a matter of seconds, and now I can walk into my meeting informed with up-to-date information, and I can be confident that the information that I'm giving to that particular person or to my decision makers, I'm giving them the latest information that they need and the most accurate information that they need to make well-informed decisions. Because in today's marketplace, that can make the difference between being profitable and not being profitable. Inefficiencies that are brought about because of old data or because of decisions that were made using inaccurate data, and sometimes it's not inaccurate, it's just, it is accurate. Unfortunately, those accurate 4 days ago. Right, so it's almost like it's like going hunting and trying to hit a target that's no longer there. Right. So what this does is it puts the control back into my hands, and now I can make business decisions based on self-service analytics. Right, self-service data that I can now use, and I can format it so that it gives me exactly what I'm looking for. It lets me know exactly what I'm looking at, and I can be confident that it's accurate, it's up to date, and it's in a format that makes sense to me. And even not only does it make sense on its face, but I know that it has been compared and it's been put together with other key performance information so that I can make an informed decision that may even cross departments. And for stuff like that, we can even do dashboards, right? Dashboards are a great way to give us information right at our fingertips. What a lot of people don't realize is that some of those advanced functionalities that Excel has are the charts. Some of your dashboarding applications will tell you that they're extremely expensive, have 200 plus charts. What a lot of people don't realize is that Excel has over 230 charts, but again, most people don't use them because of the fact that getting the data into a format that they could then put the chart against is very time consuming. But with BizInsight, it's quick, it's very easy to do, and now I can create dashboards like this This was created using nothing but BizInsight functions and Excel charts. So the last thing that that I wanted to show you was the other side, or the other aspect of that self-service business analytics model, is not only being able to refresh the data and create reports that are dynamic and give you the data when you need them, but also being able to distribute those reports when it's timely and when it's required. And that is what BizBroadcast does. So BizBroadcast gives me the ability to add a distribution template to my reports. Now, because BizBroadcast is an add-in to Excel, I can actually use it with any Excel workbook. It doesn't have to be a BizInsight report only. So basically what I do is I go into BizBroadcast, I select new distribution template, and it will place a template like this into my report. And now all I have to do is go through and set the parameters for each column and tell it the information that it needs in order to execute that that distribution for me, or even execute the creation of that report. And I'll show you what I mean by that here in a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to each column. It'll actually tell me what parameters are required. In this case, the first thing it needs is a rendering format. And I have 11 different ones I can choose from PDF to standard Excel, even Excel values only. I can even do HTML. So I can publish out to the web if I want to. I can send it to any shared or local path that I have access to, including an FTP site if I'm publishing it to my outward-facing resources like our website or our internal company website, things like that. Or I can send it to an email address. I can either type the email address in, or I can actually use the address book from my local email application to select which contents or contacts I want to send it to. I don't have to send all of the worksheets in my workbook. I can select which ones I want to send. I can send one of them. I can send all of them, or I can send any combination in between. Right? I just tell it which ones I want to send. I say OK, and then what it will do is it will only send the worksheets that I have selected, and I can add parameters so that I can tell it not only which worksheets to send, but how I want that data distributed, how I want it received. So for instance, here is what I've done here is I've designated my customer analysis report, the one that I showed you that had multiple parameters for year, month, and territory. Right. So I have 3 different filters on this one. So I have 2 years worth of data, 12 months, and 6 different parameters for territory. It's over 140 versions of this report that I can create, and all I have to do is create the report once, select it in my BizBroadcast template, and then tell it what parameters I want it to use. So what I've done here is I've told it the years, the months, and then which territories I want to send it to. And then I simply click Run Now, and what it will do is it will go out, it will render that report for me, and it will send it out according, exactly as I've designated. And what I'm going to end up with is a report that looks like this. Here is the PDF that was created from that distribution template. You'll notice that that I have some of these reports look familiar. I've sent versions of some of these reports along with it, as well as a copy of that customer analysis report for each combination of parameters that I gave it. And these reports only exist here in this PDF file. I didn't have to go and create them, update them, manage them, and print them out and merge them. That was done for me on the fly. All I had to do was tell it that I wanted to send that report, tell it the parameters that I wanted to use, and then click Run Now. And I can even use my scheduler here if I want to automate it. I notice here I simply select Set Schedule, and then I designate my frequency, anything from hourly to monthly. I tell it how often I want it to go out, maybe first Monday of every month, for instance. I tell it what date I want it to start, and what will happen is on that date it will open up, it will refresh that report, and then it will send it out as I've designated. I can, as I mentioned, I can email it, or if I want to create a consolidated report, or a report that has multiple versions in it, I can even create it and just have it so that every morning when I come into work, it has regenerated and dropped a copy out onto my desktop so that I have it to go over. And again, all I had to do was select Set Schedule. So as you can see, the world of self-service business analytics is here. There are already great tools that are available to you as not just report writers, but as report consumers for having the information that you need at your fingertips to be able to make informed decisions very quickly, very accurately, and very easily. So again, thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to forward those to us, and we'll be happy to get those answers to you as soon as we can. All right, I will turn the time back over to you, Jody.
Thank you very much, Charles. Really appreciate that extensive presentation. Every time I see a demo of BizInsight, I'm more and more impressed with the functionality, and today was no different. Picked up a couple extra things that I had not previously seen before. I don't see any questions in the chat window. If you have a question directly for Charles, raise your hand in the GoToMeeting session, and I'll unmute you so that you can talk directly with him. We'll give just a moment and see if anybody raises their hands. It does not look like we have any additional questions at this time. If following the webinar you do have any questions or want to take a deeper dive into BizInsight for your company in particular, please contact me at jody@oasisky.com. That's JODY@oasisky.com, or my phone number is 502-429-6902. extension 225, and we'll get you connected with BizNet Software directly so that we can do a demonstration for your company. Thanks again, Charles, and everyone have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.